My name is Eleanor Vance, and I'm 61 years old. Last night, my own son, the child I raised, the boy I gave my entire life to, attacked me until I bled. The reason? A bowl of soup. A bowl of homemade butternut squash soup that didn't have enough salt. As I lay on the cold linoleum of my own kitchen floor, the metallic tang of blood filling my mouth, wiping my own blood from my lip with the corner of a dish towel, he simply walked to his room, closed the door with a soft click, and went to sleep. As if striking his mother were as mundane as taking out the trash. As if my pain was nothing more than an inconvenient footnote to his day. This morning, I woke up with a body that feels like a stranger's, a collection of aches and pains that don't belong to me. Every muscle screams in protest. A constellation of bruises darkens my arms, and this cut on my lip throbs with a life of its own, a constant, sharp reminder. But the physical pain? That's the easy part. It's a language the body understands. The real agony, the one that has no cure, is the humiliation. It's the chilling realization that to my own son, I am not a mother. I am a function. I am a maid, an unpaid servant, whose only purpose in this world is to cater to his every whim and then have the decency to remain silent about the cost. It's the knowledge that the boy I once rocked to sleep, whispering promises of safety and love into his tiny ear, now sees me as nothing more than a piece of furniture in the house he has colonized. If this story already has you on the edge of your seat, please take a moment to hit that like button, leave a comment below to let me know you're here, and subscribe to Aunt Millie's Tales so you don't miss how this nightmare unfolds. Your support means more than you know in this quiet, lonely house. I rose at 5 a.m., just like every other day since he moved back in. The routine is a brittle shield against the chaos, a set of familiar motions to keep my mind from shattering completely. My son, William. Will, as he insists on being called now, a name that sounds so cold and corporate on my tongue, was already awake. He sat at the kitchen table, a perfect picture of a young Boston executive in his impeccable charcoal gray suit, his eyes glued to the bright, unforgiving screen of his phone. He didn't look up when I entered. He didn't have to acknowledge my presence. I was simply part of the morning's mechanics. "Breakfast," he commanded, his thumb swiping endlessly through a river of emails. "Hurry up. I have an important meeting with the board at 9. It was as if last night never happened. As if his screams calling me worthless and useless were just a bad dream I'd had. As if he hadn't hissed, his face inches from mine, that if I wasn't his mother, he would have thrown me out onto the street years ago to rot. I moved with the silent, practiced efficiency of a ghost in my own home. My feet made no sound on the floorboards I had chosen myself 3 decades ago. I prepared his scrambled eggs precisely as he demands. 3 organic, free-range eggs, whisked for exactly 60 seconds to achieve the perfect, fluffy consistency, with a 1/4 cup of shredded sharp Vermont cheddar folded in at the last possible moment. 2 slices of artisan sourdough bread, toasted to a pale, even gold. Black coffee, brewed from beans he has delivered from a specialty roaster, no sugar. Everything had to be perfect, measured, controlled. Because any deviation, no matter how small, a speck of brown on the toast, the eggs slightly too firm, could cause him to detonate. And when Will detonates, I am always the one left sifting through the shrapnel of his rage. As he ate, scrolling, always scrolling, the sound of a key in the front door lock echoed through the silent house. It was Emily, his wife. Young, elegant, with a smile as bright and fake as a department store mannequin. She glided in, a vision in a mint green sheath dress and heels that clicked with sharp authority on the polished hardwood floors. She kissed Will on the cheek, a chaste, public performance for an audience of one, and took her seat at the table as if she were a queen surveying her domain. "Good morning, Eleanor," she said, her voice dripping with a cloying sweetness she only ever used when Will was present. "How are you this morning? Did you sleep well?" I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her that I woke up bruised and battered by the man she was smiling at, that the reason I was moving so stiffly was because my back was a canvas of his fury, that I hadn't truly slept in 3 years. Instead, I manufactured a smile that felt like cracking glass across my face. "I'm fine, thank you, Emily." "Very well." Will shot me a look over the top of his phone, a silent, razor-sharp warning. His eyes said it all. "One wrong word, old woman, and tonight will be 100 times worse." Then, he plastered on that charming, boyish smile he reserved for the public, the one that had always made people trust him instantly. "Look, Mom," he said, pulling a small, expensive-looking tube from his leather briefcase. "I bought you this new concealer. It's from that French brand Emily likes. Perfect for covering up those little scrapes you got when you tripped over the rug last night." Little scrapes. That's what he called the result of his fists, as if I had stumbled and accidentally fallen onto his knuckles, as if the house itself were to blame, and not the monster who lived inside it. I took the tube without a word. The cold, heavy metal felt obscene in my hand. It was a high-end brand, the kind that costs more than my entire weekly grocery budget. He probably bought it with my own retirement money. He's managed my entire bank account for the last 2 years, you see. It started with a suggestion. "Mom, you've worked so hard your whole life. Let me take care of the bills. It'll be easier for you." He says it's for my own good, that at my age, I can't be trusted to handle complex finances. The truth is, I haven't seen a single dollar of my own pension in 24 months. Emily was looking at him with shining, adoring eyes, a perfect portrait of wifely devotion. "You're so thoughtful, honey. Always taking such good care of your mom. If only she knew. If only she had any idea that her perfect, successful husband, the brilliant tech executive who managed multi-million-dollar accounts, came home every night to unload his stress and frustration onto the woman who brought him into this world." After breakfast, Will adjusted his crimson silk tie in the hall mirror, grabbed his briefcase, and leaned in close as he passed me, his voice a venomous whisper in my ear while Emily was in the other room, searching for her keys. "Remember what we talked about last night? If you ever open your mouth, if you tell a single soul what happens in this house, you will regret it more than you can possibly imagine. No one will believe you anyway. You're just a crazy old woman living off her son's charity." His words were ice in my veins, a poison that seeped into my soul. They left together, holding hands as they walked down the front path, the picture-perfect couple heading out to conquer the world. I watched from the living room window as they got into Will's new car, a sleek black sedan that cost more than I had earned in the last 5 years of my career. My money, all of it, bought with my money. When the house finally fell silent, I sank back into my chair in the kitchen and let the tears I'd been holding back finally fall. Not tears of sadness, tears of pure, unadulterated rage. I knew I had to do something. I just didn't know what. I was a prisoner in the beautiful 4-bedroom colonial I had bought 30 years ago, with every penny I had saved and every dream I had held for my future. I worked for 40 years as the executive secretary to the senior partner at Sullivan and Cromwell, one of Boston's most prestigious law firms. 40 years of dedication, of getting up before dawn, of anticipating the needs of powerful men, of being the invisible engine that made everything run smoothly. I was good at my job. I was respected. I never, in my darkest nightmares, imagined I would end my life this way. A ghost in my own home. It all started 3 years ago, when Will's first marriage fell apart. He showed up at my door one rainy October night, a single expensive suitcase in his hand, and that lost puppy look in his eyes that had always been my undoing. "Mom, I just need to stay for a little while," he'd said, his voice thick with a carefully crafted despair. "Just until I get my finances sorted." The divorce wiped me out. I lost everything. Like the fool I've always been when it comes to him, I opened my door and my heart. "Of course, sweetheart. This will always be your home." I had no idea I was inviting a monster over the threshold, a vampire who would slowly drain the life out of me. The first few months were deceptively normal. He was considerate, even helpful. We had dinner together. We talked. I thought, foolishly, that this was a second chance for us. But slowly, the darkness began to seep in, poisoning the air between us. It started with small criticisms, little barbs designed to undermine my confidence. "Mom, this meatloaf is too dry." "Mom, why can't you iron my shirts properly?" "There's a crease in this collar." Comments that stung, but I excused them as the stress of his divorce. Then came the financial help. "Mom, at your age, you shouldn't be dealing with all these bills and online banking. It's too confusing. Let me handle your accounts. I'm an expert with this stuff." And like an idiot, blinded by a mother's love and a desperate desire to be needed, I gave him my passwords, my account numbers, my entire financial life. I thought he was helping. He was my son. He would never hurt me. How breathtakingly, catastrophically wrong I was. Within 6 months, Will had complete control. My monthly pension, a respectable sum I had earned over a lifetime of work, was deposited directly into an account he controlled. He gave me $100 a week for personal expenses, an allowance befitting a teenager. When I questioned him, he'd just smile patiently, condescendingly. "Mom, I'm investing your savings, making them grow in the market. You don't understand these things. Just trust me." Then came Emily, a woman 25 years his junior, with a flawless smile and an ambition so sharp, you could cut yourself on it. They met at his office, where she was a junior marketing assistant. 6 months later, they were married in a lavish ceremony on a vineyard that cost a fortune. My fortune, of course. After Emily moved in, my demotion was complete. I was no longer the lady of the house. I was the unpaid help. "Eleanor, make dinner for Emily and me. Something elegant. She's used to fine dining." "Eleanor, clean the guest bathroom. We have important people coming over from my firm," and I always obeyed. I was afraid of his anger, afraid of his threats to put me out of my own house, because the house, legally mine, now had his name on the deed as well. "For security, Mom," he had said with that earnest, convincing smile. "For estate planning, just in case anything happens to you." The physical violence started a year ago. It was insidious, a shove in the hallway, disguised as an accident. A tight, painful grip on my arm when I was too slow to bring him a drink. "You're driving me crazy, Mom." "You're too slow." It escalated to slaps across the face when the food wasn't to his exacting liking, to punches in my back, hidden by my clothes when I wasn't cleaning fast enough. But last night was different. He crossed a line I never thought even he would cross. I'd made a simple, healthy vegetable soup for dinner. He took one spoonful, and his face twisted into a mask of pure disgust. "What the hell is this?" he roared, spitting it back into the bowl. "It's bland as water. There's no salt." I tried to apologize to fix it, but it was too late. He grabbed the hot bowl and threw it in my face. The burning liquid scalded my cheek, and a shard of porcelain cut my lip open. "You're useless!" he screamed, grabbing me by my shoulders, shaking me until my teeth rattled. 40 years as a secretary to powerful men, and you can't even make a decent soup. You're pathetic. He slammed me against the kitchen wall. My head hit the tile with a sickening crack, and stars exploded behind my eyes. He slapped me once, twice, 3 times. Hard, open-handed slaps that made my ears ring with a deafening buzz. "Emily is having her friends over for lunch tomorrow." He seethed, his face a mask of rage as I cowered on the floor. "You will prepare something special. And it better be perfect. If you embarrass me in front of them, I swear to God, I will throw you out of this house for good." Then, just as quickly, his rage subsided, like a storm passing. He knelt, helped me up with a gentle hand that was a terrifying contradiction to the violence moments before, and dabbed the blood from my lip with a napkin. "I'm sorry, Mom," he whispered, his voice soft and remorseful again. "I just get so frustrated." "I know you can do better. This is all for your own good. It's so you'll learn." And then he went to bed and slept the sleep of the righteous, leaving me to clean up the wreckage. I stayed up all night, scrubbing the soup from the grout on the walls, picking up the shattered pieces of the bowl, which felt like picking up the shattered pieces of my own dignity. At dawn, I heard his footsteps on the stairs. My heart began to pound, that familiar, sickening drumbeat of fear that had become the soundtrack to my life. He entered the kitchen, already in his suit, and sat at the table, waiting to be served. I made his eggs, his toast, his coffee, all in a dead, oppressive silence. At 7:30, Emily arrived, today in a bright yellow dress that seemed to mock the grayness of my world. "Good morning, Eleanor," she chirped with her plastic smile. "Feeling better today?" I just nodded, unable to speak. As I served her coffee, I saw her gaze linger for a fraction of a second on my swollen lip, on the bruise peeking from the collar of my blouse. For a moment, a foolish, desperate moment, I thought she might ask. That she might show a flicker of human concern. But she just looked away, her attention returning to the glowing screen of her phone. Will finished his breakfast and fixed me with a hard, unblinking stare. "Remember, Mom." Lunch for Emily and her 3 friends. Seafood pasta, Caesar salad, a nice dessert, and buy some good white wine, a Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand, not that cheap garbage you like. He tossed 3 $20 bills on the table, the paper fluttering down like an insult. $60. $60 to prepare a gourmet lunch for 4 people. A sum he would easily spend on a single tie without a second thought. "And one more thing," he added, leaning in so Emily couldn't hear. "Put on that concealer I bought you. Cover those marks well. If any of Emily's friends notice anything, if they ask a single question, you'll regret it. Do you understand me?" I nodded, my hands trembling so hard I had to hide them in my lap. He smiled, satisfied, then leaned over and kissed my forehead like the perfect doting son, a gesture so false it made my skin crawl. And then they left. $60. The pressure was immense. It wasn't just the financial impossibility of the task. It was the emotional tightrope I would have to walk. I had to create an illusion of a happy, prosperous, loving home. I had to pretend to be the doting mother-in-law, a pillar of this perfect family, when in reality, I was a battered woman trapped in a gilded cage. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. The reflection was a stranger's. My lip was puffy and purple. My eyes were red-rimmed and haunted. I opened the expensive concealer and began the ritual of painting over the evidence of my son's love. As I did, I thought about all the other times I'd done this, the lies I'd told to concerned colleagues before I retired, to old friends I rarely saw anymore. I tripped on the rug. I walked into an open cabinet door. I'm just so clumsy these days. One lie after another, a flimsy wall built to protect his reputation, to protect the fragile illusion of my life. I went to the supermarket, my face a carefully constructed mask of normalcy. I felt like an actress on a stage, playing the part of a normal suburban woman doing her shopping. I stretched those $60 until they screamed. Frozen shrimp instead of fresh, the cheapest bottle of New Zealand wine that wouldn't taste like vinegar, pasta on sale, lettuce that was slightly wilted. Every cent counted. While waiting in the checkout line, a kind voice broke through my anxious fog. "Hello, Eleanor." It was Brenda, my next-door neighbor, a sweet widow in her 60s with kind, crinkly eyes. "How are you, dear? I haven't seen you out in the garden lately. Your roses must miss you." "Hello, Brenda," I said, forcing another smile that felt heavy and unnatural on my swollen lip. "I'm fine, just been so busy around the house." Her eyes, kind and perceptive, lingered on my mouth. "Did you hurt yourself, dear?" she asked, genuine concern in her voice. My heart hammered against my ribs, a trapped bird. "Oh, it's nothing," I lied, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. "I bumped into a cabinet door last night. You know me, so clumsy." Brenda frowned, a shadow of doubt crossing her face, but she was too polite to press. "Well," she said warmly, patting my arm, "if you ever need anything at all, you know where I live. I'm always home." Her simple kindness was almost my undoing. For a fleeting moment, I wanted to shatter, to confess everything right there in the middle of the grocery store. But Will's voice, his threats, echoed in my head. "No one will believe you. You're just a crazy old woman." "Thank you, Brenda," I managed to say, my voice thick. "You're very kind." I returned home and threw myself into the preparations. The house had to be spotless, the table set with my best china, the silverware polished, the flowers arranged perfectly. Everything had to be a flawless illusion to appease my captor. As I worked, Brenda's words replayed in my mind. If you ever need anything, did she suspect? Had she heard the screams that I often muffled with a pillow? At 11:30, my phone rang. An unknown number. My stomach clenched. "Mrs. Vance?" A man's professional voice asked. "Yes, this is she. This is Adrian Castillo from the accounting department at your son Will's company, Northern Technologies. We need to speak with you urgently about some discrepancies we've found in his corporate accounts. It appears some funds have been routed through a bank account with your name on it. Could you come to our office this afternoon?" My blood ran cold. Discrepancies? Funds routed through my account? "I'd rather not discuss the details over the phone, Mrs. Vance. Can you come at 3 o'clock? It's very important." I hung up, my hand shaking so violently I dropped the phone. What had Will done now? But there was no time to dwell on this new wave of fear. The doorbell rang. Emily and her friends had arrived. I took a deep breath, checked my makeup one last time in the hall mirror, and opened the door. There was Emily with 3 women, all looking like they'd stepped out of a magazine, dressed in expensive clothes, carrying purses that cost more than my monthly pension. "Eleanor," Emily said sweetly, "let me introduce my friends. This is Beatrice from HR, Brenda from marketing, and this is Sarah from our legal department." My heart stopped. Sarah. It couldn't be. I looked at her closely, past the professional veneer. It was Sarah Miller, my younger sister. My sister, whom I hadn't seen in 2 years, not since Will had systematically driven a wedge between us, calling her a bad influence and emotionally unstable. Sarah's eyes widened in equal shock for a millisecond, but to her credit, she recovered instantly. She was always the quicker one, the smarter one, the fighter. She immediately sensed that my presence here, in this role, was terribly wrong. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Vance," she said formally, playing along, her eyes doing a quick professional scan of my face, noting the puffiness, the too thick makeup. "Emily has told us so much about you." I led them into the dining room, a perfect stage set for a perfect lie. I served the lunch, my hands surprisingly steady, my hostess training from decades of corporate life kicking in. The shrimp pasta had turned out well, the salad was crisp, the wine was chilled. The women chattered about work, vacations, and office gossip. I moved back and forth from the kitchen, the perfect, invisible hostess. But I could feel Sarah's eyes on me the entire time. She watched my every move, her lawyerly gaze missing nothing, noting how I flinched when a plate was set down too loudly, how my smile never quite reached my eyes. "This food is delicious, Eleanor," Beatrice commented. "Did you make all of this yourself?" "Yes, I love to cook," I lied, the words feeling foreign. "How lucky Will is to have such a devoted mother," another friend added. Emily beamed, soaking in the praise as if it were her own. "It's true. Eleanor takes care of everything for us. It's like having a live-in housekeeper, but better, because she does it with love. A housekeeper. That's all I was to her. A convenient, free appliance." Sarah cleared her throat, cutting through the chatter. "And what did you do before you retired, Eleanor?" she asked, her tone casual, but her eyes sharp and focused on me. For the first time in a long time, a flicker of my old self, of the competent, respected woman I used to be, ignited within me. "I was the executive secretary to the senior partner at Sullivan and Cromwell for 40 years, I said, my voice clear. Sarah's eyes lit up with professional interest. "Sullivan and Cromwell? That's top tier. I interned there one summer during law school. A very prestigious reputation. You must have been involved in some very important, high-stakes work over the years." "I was," I said, a genuine smile finally reaching my lips as I remembered. "Mr. Sullivan always said I was indispensable." Emily looked annoyed, her perfect lunch party being sidetracked by my past. She quickly changed the subject. "Well, now Eleanor is enjoying her well-deserved rest. Will takes care of everything for her now, her finances, all her needs. He's such a responsible son." Sarah's eyes darted to me the moment Emily said that. I saw the question in them. A woman who was indispensable at a top Boston law firm for 40 years doesn't suddenly need her 35-year-old son to manage her money. The lunch dragged on, the tension under the surface so thick I could barely breathe. When I went to the kitchen to get the dessert, Sarah followed me. "Need a hand?" she asked, her real purpose to get me alone. "No thank you, Sarah. Everything's under control," I said, avoiding her gaze, busying myself with plates. "Eleanor," she said, her voice low and urgent, using my real name for the first time. "Are you okay? Really? You seem different. Frightened?" The dam inside me was about to break. I wanted to collapse into her arms, my little sister, and tell her everything. But at that exact moment, I heard Will's keys in the lock. He was home early. "Everything's fine, Sarah," I said quickly, my voice tight with panic. "I'm just a little tired today." Will entered the dining room, his public persona switched on like a light. He was charming, witty, the perfect host. He greeted Emily's friends with a dazzling smile. "I hope my mother took good care of you, ladies," he said, coming up behind me and placing a heavy hand on my shoulder. I flinched involuntarily, a tiny, almost imperceptible movement. But he felt it. His fingers tightened, digging into the muscle, a silent, painful warning. "She's the best mother in the world," he said to the room, his voice full of false warmth, while his fingers ground into my flesh. Always sacrificing for her family? After dessert, the women began to leave. Sarah was the last. As she hugged me goodbye at the door, she whispered in my ear, her voice fierce. "I'll call you. We'll talk soon. Don't brush me off." When the door closed, Will's mask dropped instantly. "You did well," he said coldly, his voice flat. "For once, you didn't embarrass me." While I was clearing the table, my hands shaking from the strain of the afternoon, he added casually, "By the way, a technician is coming tomorrow to check your computer. You've been looking at some strange websites lately. We need to make sure you haven't picked up a virus." My blood turned to ice. He knew. He knew I'd been searching for domestic abuse shelters, for women's helplines. He was monitoring my every move. He was telling me there was no escape. Just then, my phone, which I'd left on the counter, buzzed. It was a text from Adrian Castillo, the accountant. "Mrs. Vance, following up on our call. It is imperative that we speak today. The matter is serious." I looked at the clock. 2:15. Will was heading upstairs, presumably to take a nap before his evening calls. This was my chance. A tiny, terrifying window of opportunity. "Yes," I texted back with trembling fingers. "I'll be there at 3. I grabbed my purse and slipped out of the house, my heart pounding with a mixture of terror and a strange, unfamiliar flicker of hope. I felt like a spy in my own life, an escapee from a prison everyone else saw as a beautiful suburban home. The corporate office building downtown was a monument of glass and steel that scraped the sky. I had never been there. Will kept his work life hermetically sealed from me. A world I was not worthy to enter. On the 18th floor, the offices of Northern Technologies were hushed and intimidating. I was led into the office of Adrian Castillo, a man in his 50s with kind, serious eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Mrs. Vance?" he began, foregoing any small talk as he opened a thick folder full of spreadsheets and bank statements. "We've discovered that your son has been making unauthorized wire transfers from company accounts into your personal bank account. Transfers that are then immediately withdrawn in cash or moved to another account we can't trace." I felt the air leave my lungs, my carefully constructed composure crumbling. "That can't be," I stammered, the words feeling foolish as soon as I said them. "Will would never." "I'm afraid he has," Adrian said gently, turning a statement around for me to see. My name was at the top, and below it, a list of incoming transfers from his company, each for thousands of dollars. Over the last 6 months, he has embezzled over $50,000. It appears he's been using your joint account to launder the money, likely assuming no one would ever question the finances of his elderly mother. $50,000. My son wasn't just an abuser. He was a common thief, and he had made me his unwitting accomplice. "But I didn't know anything!" I cried, the words tearing from my throat. "He controls my entire account. I haven't seen a bank statement in years." "We know," Adrian said, his expression softening with pity. "We suspected as much. That's why we called you. Mrs. Vance, to clear your name and to allow us to proceed with legal action against him, we need you to file a formal complaint stating that he has been misusing your bank account without your knowledge or consent." I left that office in a complete daze, the city streets a blur of noise and motion. My son, a criminal. He had not only beaten me and stolen my dignity, but he had also used me, used my good name, to commit felonies. I walked for hours aimlessly through the bustling city streets, the weight of this new knowledge pressing down on me. When I finally returned home, it was evening. Will was in the living room, watching the business news on a massive television. "Where the hell have you been?" he demanded, not even looking at me. For the first time in years, I met his gaze head on, my fear momentarily eclipsed by a white-hot rage. "I was at your office, Will." The color drained from his face. The remote slipped from his fingers and clattered onto the floor. "I spoke with the accountant, Adrian Castillo. I know what you've been doing." He rose from the sofa, his body coiled like a snake ready to strike. "You don't know what you're talking about, you senile old woman." $50,000, I said, my voice gaining strength with every word. "That's what I'm talking about. Embezzlement. Laundering money through my account." He lunged for me, grabbing my arm in a brutal grip. "You listen to me? Let go of me!" I screamed, a raw, primal sound I didn't know I possessed. The sheer shock of my defiance made him release his grip for a second. "You're crazy," he stammered, his confidence faltering for the first time. "No one will believe you over me." "The bank statements will," I shot back, my voice shaking but firm. "The transfer records will." "They have it all documented, Will." He raised his hand to strike me, his face a mask of pure hatred. But at that exact moment, the doorbell rang, loud and insistent, shattering the tension in the room. It was Brenda from next door. "Eleanor!" she called through the door, her voice laced with panic. "Is everything all right in there?" I heard screaming. Will's hand dropped. He couldn't risk a witness. His perfect reputation was everything to him. "Go!" he hissed at me, his eyes blazing. "Get rid of her. And you'd better not say a single word." I opened the door to find Brenda there, her face etched with worry. And right behind her, walking up the path, was my sister, Sarah. She must have called Brenda after I didn't answer her calls. "We were just in the neighborhood," Sarah said, her eyes boring into Will's, a clear, unspoken challenge. "Thought we'd drop by and see how Eleanor was doing after her clumsy day." Will forced a grotesque smile, the sweat beading on his forehead. "No problem at all, ladies. My mother just had a little kitchen accident. A pot boiled over. Startled her. When they finally left, after an excruciating 10 minutes of tense small talk, Will slammed the door shut. "This isn't over," he snarled, his voice low and menacing. "Tomorrow, you and I are going to the bank. And you are going to sign whatever I tell you to sign. You are going to retract any complaint and tell everyone this was all a big misunderstanding." "No," I said, the word feeling powerful and liberating on my tongue. "What did you say?" he whispered, advancing on me, his eyes blazing with a fury I had never seen before. "I said no. I'm not signing anything. I'm not covering for you anymore. It's over." "Fine," he said, his voice terrifyingly calm. "If that's how you want to play it. But I promise you, when I'm done with you, you'll wish you had never been born." That night, I didn't sleep a wink. I knew the final battle was coming, and I had no idea if I had the strength to survive it. The next day dawned gray and rainy, the sky weeping in sympathy with my life. Will was up before 5, pacing the downstairs floor like a caged tiger, whispering urgently on the phone. When I came downstairs, he was dressed in his most expensive suit, a predator in tailored wool, ready for war. "Good morning, Mom," he said, his voice sickeningly sweet, a complete reversal from the night before. "I've had a lot of time to think, and I've decided you're right. I've been under a lot of stress. I've been too hard on you." I stood frozen, knowing this was just another, more insidious form of attack. "That's why we're going to the bank today," he continued, smiling that chilling, empty smile. "We're going to go together to clear up this little misunderstanding." You're going to explain to them that you authorized all the transfers, that it was part of a family financial plan we had." "I'm not doing that, Will," I said, my voice quiet but steady. His smile vanished, as if it had been wiped away. "Oh, yes you are. Because if you don't, some very unpleasant things are going to happen. I've already spoken to some doctors, friends of mine. They specialize in geriatric care, in conditions like senile dementia. It's so sad when elderly parents start to lose their grip on reality, making up wild, hurtful stories. It will be my painful duty as a loving son to seek a conservatorship to protect you from yourself." He was going to have me declared insane. He was going to strip me of my rights, my voice, my very identity. "Emily and her friends will back me up," he continued, his voice cold and clinical. "They all noticed how confused and agitated you were at lunch yesterday. It's a classic symptom. Who will a judge believe? A successful, concerned executive, or his crazy, vindictive mother?" He was going to destroy me, to erase me. He left for a morning meeting at a different office, warning me not to leave the house or make any calls. "I'll be back at 9:30 sharp to take you to the bank. Be ready." As soon as the door closed behind him, I collapsed into a kitchen chair, sobbing with a rage and helplessness so profound it felt like it would consume me. Then, a soft, urgent knock at the back door. It was Brenda. "Eleanor, open up quick," she whispered through the glass. When I let her in, her face was pale but determined. "I heard everything," she said. "I have a small security camera hidden in the azalea bushes by your kitchen window. I recorded your entire conversation this morning. His threats, the blackmail about having you declared incompetent. We have evidence." For the first time, a surge of real, tangible hope cut through my despair. "What do we do?" "My friend is a prosecutor at the district attorney's office," she said, her voice firm. "Her name is Brenda Davies, and she specializes in elder abuse and financial fraud. We need to go there, right now, before he comes back." "I can't," I whispered, the fear still a powerful reflex. "He'll find me. He'll kill me." "Eleanor," she said, grabbing my hands, her grip strong and steady. "If you go to that bank and sign those papers, you become his legal accomplice in a felony. You will lose everything, including your freedom. This is our only chance to fight back." In that moment, I made the decision that saved my life. I grabbed my purse, which contained the few documents he hadn't taken from me, and I walked out of the house I had once loved, walking towards a future I couldn't yet see. At the DA's office, the prosecutor, Ms. Davies, a sharp, no-nonsense woman in her 40s, reviewed Brenda's recordings with a grim expression. "Mrs. Vance," she said, her voice filled with a cold fury on my behalf. "What your son has done here constitutes multiple felonies: domestic abuse, grand larceny, witness tampering, and conspiracy to commit fraud. We can and we will arrest him today, but to make the case ironclad, I need you to file a formal, sworn complaint." I looked at the clock on the wall. 9:15. Will would be home any minute, expecting to find his meek, broken victim ready for transport to the bank. "Yes," I said, my voice clear and firm in the quiet office. "I'm ready." While I filled out the paperwork, my hand shaking but my purpose clear, Ms. Davies coordinated with the Boston Police Department. At 10:30, her phone rang. They had arrested Will at my house. He had been tearing the place apart, screaming my name, a caged animal in a destructive rage when he found me gone. He was in custody, and with the mountain of evidence we now had, the prosecutor assured me bail was highly unlikely. The relief was so profound, it was a physical sensation, a 1,000-pound weight being lifted from my soul. But the fight was far from over. From jail, Will began his next campaign of psychological warfare. He sent a letter through a different lawyer, a shark in a pinstripe suit. "Dear Mom," the elegant script read, "I hope you're enjoying your little victory. But this isn't over. I had a lot of time on my hands in this house you built for me. I went through your old things, your files from the firm. I know your secrets. Remember the Williams Pharmaceuticals case 15 years ago? The documents you reorganized for Mr. Sullivan to help him win that case? I have copies of the original files you hid. Obstruction of justice carries a hefty prison sentence, even for a senior citizen. Drop the charges against me, or everyone in Boston will know the truth." My blood ran cold. I remembered the case, a complex product liability suit. I remembered reorganizing files, removing internal memos on Mr. Sullivan's direct orders. I had just been following instructions, a loyal, diligent secretary. I never knew it was illegal. He had found my one point of vulnerability, my past. The next letter was even crueler. It included high-resolution photographs of the documents, with my handwriting in the margins, my notes on which pages to remove. "I also have recordings," he wrote, his words dripping with venom. "From the security system I had installed. Recordings of you accepting cash bonuses from grateful clients. Money you never reported on your taxes. That's called tax evasion, Mom. Another 15 years in prison. Come see me before Friday. Come alone. And bring a signed letter dropping all charges, citing your advancing mental deterioration." He had me trapped in a perfect prison of his own making. If I pursued the charges, he would destroy me with my own past. If I dropped them, he would walk free to continue his reign of terror. It was my new lawyer, a brilliant young woman assigned by the DA's office, who came up with the insane, brilliant, terrifying plan. "We get ahead of him," she said, her eyes alight with a fighting spirit. "We call his bluff. We go public. You hold a press conference and you confess everything yourself. You tell your whole story. You take away his weapon. You show the world that he is a master manipulator, blackmailing a domestic abuse victim from a prison cell." It was the most terrifying thing I had ever considered. To lay my entire life, my mistakes, my shame, bare for the world to see. But it was also the only path to true freedom. The day before the scheduled press conference, something incredible happened. Raphael Miller, Will's CEO, the man who had first discovered the embezzlement, asked to meet me urgently. "Mrs. Vance," he said, his expression full of a deep, sincere regret. "I am so sorry. On behalf of my company, I apologize. We should have had better oversight. We should have caught this sooner. In our full internal investigation, we discovered Will's theft began not 6 months ago, but 2 years ago. In total, he stole over $130,000. He was also selling our proprietary code to our top competitor." Then he looked at me, a strange, thoughtful light in his eyes. "We reviewed your work history as part of our due diligence. 40 years at Sullivan and Cromwell, with impeccable, glowing references. Mrs. Vance, we want to offer you a job. We need someone with your experience, your skills, and your proven integrity to help us audit and rebuild the entire department your son destroyed. The salary is substantial, and in addition, our board has approved a $50,000 settlement to you as compensation for what you've been through and for the fraudulent use of your bank account. There is only one condition. You must testify against Will at his trial, not just for what he did to you, but for what he did to us." I walked into that press conference a different woman. The fear was gone, replaced by a cold, hard resolve that felt like steel in my spine. I sat before the flashing cameras and the sea of microphones, and I told my story. All of it. The abuse, the financial control, the theft, and my own mistakes from a lifetime ago. My son is trying to use my past to silence me, I said, my voice ringing with a strength I didn't know I had, a voice that had been buried for years. Today, I am taking that power, that weapon, away from him. I would rather face the legal consequences of my own past mistakes than live one more day as a silent victim of his manipulation. The result was immediate and overwhelming. The DA's office, swayed by my public confession and the clear evidence of blackmail, announced they would not be pressing charges against me, granting me immunity in exchange for my testimony. Will's bail was officially denied by a judge who called his actions monstrous. Emily, seeing her own financial ruin looming, filed for divorce and immediately agreed to cooperate with the prosecution and testify against him. That night, I slept in my own bed in my own house for the first time in months. The house was a mess, a testament to Will's final desperate rage. But it was my mess. It was my house. My phone rang. It was a call from the county jail. This time, I answered without a tremor of fear. "Mom," Will's voice said, hollow and defeated. He sounded like a little boy again. "I saw you on the news." "And?" I asked calmly, feeling nothing but a vast, empty space where my love for him used to be. "You destroyed everything," he whimpered. "No, Will," I said, the truth finally clear and simple in my mind. "You destroyed everything the moment you decided to turn your mother into your victim." There was a long, static-filled silence on the other end of the line. "Will you ever forgive me?" he finally asked, his voice cracking with a self-pity that I now recognized as just another tool of manipulation. "Someday," I said honestly, looking around at the quiet, peaceful room. "When you have paid for what you did. When you seek real, professional help to change the monster you've become. When you truly understand the depth of the damage you caused. Someday, I might be able to forgive you, but I will never, ever forget." I hung up the phone and turned it off. The next morning, I would start my new job. I would start my new life. Free.